Welcome to Cosmic Comics, Games and Collectibles, your zen of geekism. We carry comics old and new, magazines, toys, games like Pokemon, Magic, D&D. Want Godzilla, Ultraman, Star Trek, Ninja Turtles, Funko Pops? You'll find it all here. Shop our Cosmic Sound Room and pick up a record or two. Enjoy our Comic Coffee Lounge with a cup of Sasquatch coffee or a delicious menu item while geeking out over a super cool movie on our big screen. Come by and say hello to Maui. Cosmic Comic, Games and Collectibles. Superman loves us, and so will you.
And good evening, everybody. I am RJ Carter, Senior Managing Editor here at CriticalBlast.com, where pop culture gets blasted. And tonight we are going to look at some more independent comic book work here. The one we're looking at here just recently came off Kickstarter and is now looking at other distribution options online. It's getting a little creative. It's going places I've not heard of before, so maybe you haven't heard of them either. So maybe we'll both learn about a new distribution method here together tonight. Please welcome with me to the show, Mr. Laurent Valles Jr. Laurent, how are you tonight?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you here. And the book we're talking about here is, I guess you'd call it a theological kind of adventure. I mean, there looks like there's angels and demons. I'm talking about, real angels and demons battling it out on Earth in some sort of a battle. Is that anywhere close to being correct?
It's partially. It's a few of the ingredients in there, but yes.
So what drove you to? I mean, everybody picks their genre for their book. What inspired you to go in this direction, as opposed to straight horror or superhero or romance for that matter?
So for that one, there's a couple of comics I was debating on making first when it comes to actually producing, because I had been doing small stuff I wanted to pitch. But the first one I was like, okay, something that I can really get into long term. And I'm the type of person who genuinely enjoys horror and comedy, not recent comedy. I feel like that's not really as funny as stuff used to be. Big inspiration, I'd say, is stuff like not Shaun of the Dead, even though it's one of them. Evil Dead, is one of my favorite movies.
Oh yes,
that and Army of Darkness. Anything that has the protagonist where it's there's a horrific situation no one want to be in, but because of how the main character plays things off, it's just entertaining. And I've really always liked that type of stuff. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna write something long-term plan. Let me get into something that I could feel like I could just write for the longest time and just have a great time with it, straightforward. And that's what led to me picking this story.
Okay. Is this your first comic, or do you have a history that I'm not familiar with yet?
This is my first actual comic. I did a web comic a few years ago, and that ran for 100 pages, but that was formatted differently, and that was a bit early into my actual time writing. Even though, I'm 32 right now. That comic I wrote out when I was 19. I revamped it in my late 20s and got my art team for the first time because I actually could afford it. But I didn't really do too much with it after it stopped after 100 pages. And then I just kind of kept writing to myself. And then this is the first thing I've done since then.
Do you ever look back at the stuff you did when you were 19 and whoa, I've learned a lot from the time I started that?
Yes, 100%. I had some friends who, they became friends later, people who I was just in groups with, and they found out I did comics, and I sent them a link to it. And they're like, oh, we like this a lot. I was like, I haven't looked at this in a while. And I look at my old writing, I was like, oh, I'm cringing really hard. I do not like this. There's so much that as I've grown as a writer, I'm like, it's not explicitly bad, but I'm so much better at portraying the things I wanted to do then. I'm not a fan.
Yeah, as writers, we're hardest on ourselves, and we suffer the hardest too. I think from things like imposter syndrome, where it's I'm just typing here. What I'm not doing anything really productive or useful. Why are people liking my stuff? One day they're going to figure out I'm just faking it all. But you've got an attraction toward comics. What were the comics that you what comics did you read growing up? What inspired you that this was your medium?
So comics I came to a bit late. Anything involving like superheroes, that was early. I always loved like a Batman animated series, Superman animated series, like all that stuff from when I was a kid. And the getting into comics themselves, even though I was kind of like interested in graphic novels, but I never like actually followed comics. It wasn't till I can't remember the date specifically. I know it was Free Comic Book Day because I kept passing by the comic store all the time on the way to work. One day I had a day off. I checked it out. Wasn't even planning, but it was Free Comic Book Day. And I was asking a bit about stuff there, and they were like, hey, I mean, if you want something just to look at real quick, here you go. And it was issue number 0 of Blackest Night.
Oh, good one.
And I read that, and I was like, this is really cool. What's this going to be about? And I mean, the guy who was working the story, he was like, I mean, we don't really know where they're going to go with it, but he kind of gave me a very brief rundown. He mentioned the War of Light. I was like, that sounds rad. And I picked up like basically everything starting the Sinestro Corps War going forward. And I was like, this is fantastic. And I like jumped headfirst into comics from there. I knew I wanted to write from a few years beforehand because I just liked the idea of telling stories and entertaining people. It's something I've always liked doing. And just comics felt like the right medium for like the type of stories I wanted to tell.
So the book you had out on Kickstarter, this was Sacrifice, number 1, and I'm doing my best to show it here on a full screen, but it's going to look small on the Kickstarter screen, or not the Kickstarter screen, the StreamYard screen rather. Hopefully y'all can get a good shot of this. We have a link to it underneath the video and over at the top of the chat. But again, this is a new link. This is something called Gumroad. So tell us a little bit about Gumroad.
Gumroad is just a site where you can use as far as buying. Like I know they have like products like software products. I believe I've used it maybe a couple times for comics. I had my first issue sent to me like, is it like done? I was like, okay, now I can put this out places. I know they renamed it from Comixology after Amazon bought it, but I know it's like, hey, you have to go through our whole process. It takes a couple weeks, maybe a month to get your stuff out. It's like, okay, what's just a site I can put my stuff on? People can buy stuff. And I'd used Gumroad, like I mentioned a couple times before. And like, all right, it was a very quick and easy process to like buy my thing, have it emailed to me, where I can just kind of go to my link and get it. So I was like, all right, well, it's something familiar. So let me go for it. I had a good experience when I used it before, so that's what I picked. Yeah.
So if anybody goes to the link right now, what they'll basically see is they'll see a thumbnail of the cover, and then a buy it now kind of button, $3. That's got to be PDF, right?
Yes.
Okay. So and that's sort of an instant delivery then.
Yeah. As soon as you hit the buy now button, you get a link and it says, hey, you can either view it right there or download it to your phone or computer, however you prefer to read it.
Okay, so it's one of these download ones. That's a plus because I know there's a few sites, Comixology being one, where you buy it but you don't really own it. It's sort of like you can view it through the Comixology browser, and there's some other ones that do that as well. I know people when they're buying the PDF, when they're buying the digital version of books on Kickstarter and Indiegogo, they like it to be PDF because their computer may crash or they may lose their USB drive somewhere, but at least it's on them. They don't rent it through a service. Then what happens if Comixology says, hey, we're done, we're out of business, we're closing up shop? What happened to all your books?
Right. I've only dealt with stuff like that a few times where it's like I bought something digital and it's like I can't like download it. It's like I have to run back to like this weaving path of links to get back to like reading my stuff. And I always appreciate just the ease of like, okay, I can download it. It's just on my device. I can get to it whenever I want. So that was something I experienced and like I looked at before I decided to use that.
But you are looking at the people who were on Kickstarter, they're getting physical copies, and you're getting those physical copies in for fulfillment now. Are you going to have extra? You mentioned before the show that you were putting them on Etsy. Is that where people are going to go to get physical copies afterwards?
Etsy is it's the same deal as Gumroad, where it's something I've used, that I'm familiar with, where there's someone who I've bought comics from, and it seemed like a pretty simple thing. And I'll look into it a bit more. My primary goal is to send out the copies I do have, or that I'll be having, to the people who are backers. After that, I'll probably take a little bit of time just so I can choose the best option, because I don't want to be committed to like one site. Be like, all right, this is where I'm going to do my thing, and then has like a bad interface or something that's not like really user friendly, and then I'm kind of like, well, I already sent out the links to this, I have to run around. So when I find what I feel like would be the best option, that'll be what I go for and start pushing out for how I'm going to get physical copies out.
I double clicked there, and I didn't mean to. Mike Walters in the chat. Hello, Mike. Thanks for popping by here. And yes, do pop over at 9 p.m. Central Time, 10 p.m. Eastern, to the mic stand over on Mike's channel. So are you committed then to handling all your fulfillment, even the overrun? And how much of an overrun did you print off on this one?
Let's see. I should have just shy of 100 afterwards, because I know I have a table of convention, Southwest Florida Comic Con later this year, so I want to have copies for that. I don't have any plans as far as anything else being involved for my fulfillment, just because it was like, all right, it was the first campaign. I didn't have a ton. I'm working through stamps.com, which has a pretty convenient method for getting stuff out, where just have one thing as priority, and then I'll come up and pick all your packages. When I get probably into my second campaign, where I expect to have a decent deal and more backers because there's more eyes on it, then I'll probably look into more fulfillment centers, because I can see how that can get overwhelming. But at this moment, I don't have so huge of a following that I can't handle it myself.
All right. If you've done your research, we're a fulfillment center. I'm not going to evangelize that to you. But I will, I'll definitely try to sway you from stamps.com to pirate ship, just because I don't like paying subscriptions for things if I'm not using them every month. But I would ask if you've looked into other, not fulfillment services like we do, but like distribution places to get your books into actual retail stores. Liberty Entertainment Distribution, for instance, does that right now with a lot of crowdfunded books. The overruns go to them, or special prints go to them, and then they actually get them on store shelves.
That's not anything I've looked into so far, because with this, like I said, being my first comic, everything's kind of hit me brand new. So there's a lot of things that I'm not really figuring out till I get right before the point where that would be a thing. So everything's kind of like a learning experience at that point.
Yeah. So you just kind of jumped into the water and said, I think I can swim.
I have a lot of friends who would like put out comics. So usually when it's like, hey, I have a question, like, how does this work? I'll go to them. The problem is, it's one of those things where I don't know what I don't know until I find out that I need to know it. So it's like, all right, I'll take care of what I need to, and then something will pop up, and I'm like, oh, well, that's the thing I should have considered, and I'll try and figure out stuff from there.
So, let's talk about that a little bit then, because you just did come off a Kickstarter, and it was your first Kickstarter, I'm going to guess, as well.
Correct.
Did you go to Indiegogo immediately afterward?
I have not done anything since that campaign.
Okay, so that's the first thing that I would ask about is, did you know that you could go to Indiegogo afterward and run a secondary campaign to a different market, or is it just you use like, no, I'm Kickstarter, I stay with Kickstarter, born and bred Kickstarter, and that's where I'm going to stay?
No, I mean, the Kickstarter thing, like what I mentioned with the Gumroad, kind of falls into the same line, where it's just something I was familiar with. I had backed, I think, maybe like one or two Indiegogo campaigns, and I backed like a bunch of Kickstarter just because the stuff that I had eyes on a lot seemed to come from Kickstarter. So I was like, all right, that's it. I talked to George before, and he mentioned the whole running through, like the idea of going through Indiegogo after Kickstarter never dawned upon me until like last week. And he kind of gave me some ideas for that. I was like, okay, I'll mull these over. I want to see what I can manage with that, how I want to handle it. So I'm not closed off to any ideas as far as getting my book out there goes, But right now, because of how fast everything's moving, like I'm getting my books in tomorrow, I should be, and my next campaign, I'm getting everything ready. Like the book is almost done. It's got page 21 of 28 was finished today. I'm just raring everything up for the next. So it's there's all stuff I'm gonna look into, but I'm swamped with what I'm taking care of now.
Yeah, and doing the Kickstarter, Indiegogo, whole crowdfunding deal for comics, you're the company. Yeah, you've hired an artist, you've got inkers and colorists, but aside from the writing, you've got to find yourself a printer. You've got to do the quality control checks, and then you've got to do the distribution as well as the public relations, which usually doesn't come on the tail end of your campaign. Usually comes a little bit beforehand. But being that this was your first one, what things happened, and what things did you learn from them that you're going to carry forward to your next campaign, so that people who are going to do their first campaign can do their first campaign a little bit better, because they can also learn from your not, I'm not going to say mistakes, but learn from your hurdles and obstacles.
I'd say first thing, double, triple, quadruple check how much shipping costs, production versus how much you're going to get back from it. Like, I mean, I don't do this specifically to make a profit. Like, if I make, let's just say, over net for it, like I make an extra $1,000 from what like my goal was, past shipping and all that. Okay, cool. That all goes into production for the next book. Like, that's my mindset for all this. Anything I make past that. But like, I was a bit off on my math for shipping, and I'm not gonna like eat it for that. But it's like, okay, I'm coming back with way less that was supposed to go into the next issue than I thought.
Yeah.
So
when did you start your campaign, and when did it finish?
Let's see. I started the campaign I believe it started in June, and it ended in July.
Yeah. And so you're shipping now. So basically, part of what happened to you was you didn't do your math wrong. In August, the United States Post Office changed all their shipping rates.
That I didn't know. I mean, I did look into it briefly, where it's like, hey, this is a fair amount for shipping, and okay, that would explain where some of the issue came in.
The price went up on you after you had a stated price for shipping, because you can get the price of the shipping down to where you're actually making like 20 cents profit, if which is like a sliver. That's because you're estimating all the time. God forbid that right now you were to put up a campaign that says, hey, it's like $10 shipping, and all your orders come from Australia, because that's right now $70 to ship a book to Australia.
Oh my gosh, is it?
Oh, well, yeah. Well, no, it was $70, and now it's like you can't get there from here. That it's like you got to sail a boat past Australia and throw it over the prison wall and hope to get there. But yeah, it went from like $25 to $60 to $70, and then it was like screw it, we don't have a postal system here. So yeah, that's Australia is a nightmare when it comes to shipping right now. You had to pull off miracles. But everything else is it's fairly, I mean, it's a lot of tedious crunching of numbers. God knows that's because that's what we do. Besides doing this, you just gotta how much is my Gemini mailer cost divided by however many books I'm going to sell. Yeah, you got to count the cost of the boards and the backers. You got to count the cost of your packing tape, because like you said, you get to the end of shipping, and you're like, I have a lot less money than I expected to have. Where did it all go? And you're asking yourself this while there's a pile of empty rolls of packing tape sitting next to you that you didn't account for. It all adds up, especially if you have, and I don't know how successful your campaign was as far as number of backers, but if you get 100, 200, 1,000 backers, that's a lot of tape. That's a lot of labels. Every little thing has to be. I mean, you pack one up and you're like, I'm not going to count the cost of the tape. What was it? Was like 0.03 cents. Yeah, I'm not going to be petty and charge my customers that. Yeah, you do. you have to. And Made in Hell is backing us up. He's right. Yes, I am. Because we're doing that, and believe me, I'm operating on a razor thin margin. Every time I've got to keep an eye on the post office. They just raised their rates again. uh, temporarily raise their rates for the holidays. But in exchange, we're getting slower service, so it works out. Well, no, that's literally what they said. They said we're raising our rates and it's going to be slower. I'm like, that's not you're not selling me on this.
Where's the upside?
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know how much shipping are you looking at doing here? How big of a hit did Sacrifice make? If it was
Let's
less
see.
than 100. It was less than 100. It's okay.
Off top, I actually don't remember. I know I had 159 backers.
That's great. For a first time out, that's awesome.
I didn't have a reference point. I mean, if it's great, like that's good to hear. I know I did what I did, and I was happy with it. And the people who reached out after reading it were very happy. And I was like, all right, outstanding. I'm glad I gave you I'm glad you got a product that you're happy with. But I didn't know what number was good.
The thing is, it's a comic book. So what sells it? You could be the next Alan Moore or Neil Gaiman. But no one's going to know that from the ads. They're going to see the art, and you found yourself a really good artist here. Who have you got? Because I can't pronounce his name. And how did you get a hold of that person?
So the primary artist's name is UJ Chen, and the way I found him, as much as I hate the site, is through Facebook. There was a group called Facebook Colorists for Hire. It's basically just anyone who's working for like some type of commission. And it wasn't for this comic. It was for a pitch I did before this, but I ended up not sending in for reasons. Where it's like, hey, I'm trying to do the story. This is what the gig is. This is what my plan is. I want someone who could be committed for something long term. And I got like 100 responses to that. Like, it was like, wow, this is overwhelming. But I went through everyone. I had like a top 3 based off of like how well I felt like they complement the story I was going to do at the time. And he was one of the 3. And after that, I was like, okay, I want to make sure that, if this does get picked up, it's something someone who I'd be happy with working with long term. So I kind of did like a little mini interview with like each of them. And for me, my main goal is like, I want to put out a quality story. I want to get picked up by like, some type of publisher at some point, because I genuinely feel like the story, like some of the stories I have, this one more so than the others I was thinking, which is why I picked it. I feel like they can go places. And I wanted someone who strived as hard to get better at their craft as I want to get in mine. And we were on the same wavelength for a lot of things. I was like, this is someone who I could definitely see myself working with for a very long time. So even when I didn't go through that first story and I was like, okay, Sacrifice is going to be the one, I was already so on board with working with him. And it was a vice versa situation too, that I was like, hey, I have this other product. You want to be on part of that? And he was like, yeah, sure, I'd love to. And it's been smooth sailing since then.
Have you, if you wanted to get, more mainstreamish with your work, have you considered submitting this post campaign to Alterna?
I've seen the name before. They're a publisher, correct?
They are a publisher, but they own nothing. Everything's creator owned. They just, they publish it and they send it out to comic shops. And they print cheap. What they do is they print on newsprint. So their books are like $1.99.
Okay. So my plan for when it comes to that goes, because he's also in the same boat where he wants to be with a publisher. I want to at least do a few issues on my own. And then after I have a couple out there, like, okay, now I'll start shopping around. And between myself, my main artist, and my colorist, we're very on board with like being open with each other. So what I wanted to do is like go through basically a list of publishers, like here's who I feel like would be a good fit, and then just collectively ranking them, and then like start submitting based off of the list that we agree on. So I did start a list. I mean, it's not done, and I need to be very careful about who I submit to, especially hearing all the recent stories about what's happening with the Action Lab. Yeah. So I'm not committed to sending anything to a publisher till issue 3, but I do have like a whole timeline for myself where the 3rd campaign would be coming out in February.
And the other option is be your own publisher. Just Laurent Valles Press sounds pretty good,
I mean, there's a certain point. I feel like it would depend on what I have open to me. I'm not opposed, but whatever would get me basically the most exposure in the long run, and like the best like type of deal where I'm not out here to make a profit, but at the same time, I'm not gonna
Yeah, you are.
be
Yeah, you are.
in one of those type of situations. Well, I mean, like that's not the main goal. If I make a profit, outstanding. If I make
You've
enough
got to
where if I make enough where I can continue making books, but I'm not like, you know, DuckTales swimming in money, then like, yeah, I'm not gonna, cry about it.
Yeah, well, we don't have to have that much, but yeah, you really want to make a profit. So definitely get out there and promote as much as possible so you can sell as many books. Like I said, 159 for a first time campaign on Kickstarter. That's great. Now I've seen campaigns where it's like, we sold 100, we got 159 backers, and 20 of them are the same guy. So sometimes the number of units you're shipping is not reflective of the number of backers that the campaign shows. Which is fine. Money's money. It all adds up.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about the story here, because I've been going through the first pages here, and we've seen basically a black mass being held, a baby up for sacrifice, actual demons in attendance with these humans, and here we're at the page where the just as they're about to plunge the knife through the infant, the angels crash through the window with swords in hand, and the battle begins. And again, this is the kind of action page that's really going to sell a comic in a campaign when you show this kind of artwork and this kind of action.
Right. So that's one of those things where, I mean, there's where the main story takes place, which is 24 years after that. That group is a cult known as the Dark Order, which is a satanic cult. Their main goal is to bring Lucifer to our world. And what they've done is they've tied Lucifer's soul to this infant soul with a dark ritual. And when the infant is killed, which is their plan there, that will bring Lucifer to our world, who at that point will bring about an age of demons.
Okay.
As you mentioned with the angels, they came there to prevent that. And they did stop the sacrifice from being completed, but the soul bonding was already done. So regardless on if he's an infant, 12, 15, 35, whatever point he dies, that event will still happen. And there's plot related things with that, which I go into a little bit in the second issue when that comes out. I won't go into now, but that is a continual problem in the series.
Yeah, but the devil's Lucifer's real old, so this character could live to 120. And he's like, I'll wait you out. It's just an eye blink to me. Now, with that kind of a soul bonding taking place, though, is Lucifer conscious within the child? Is there any exerted influence, any voices or anything like that, or is it just like I can't die because if I do, the world ends?
It's the latter there. So he has a connection to him, but it's not one that can be influenced. Like, it's not like Lucifer can speak to him in the middle of the night, or Lucifer has any like real influence over him. He's kind of, because there's multiple, like, I think there is a line in that first set of pages where there are 4 realms, one of them being Earth, where we are here, the other realm for like hell, and that's where Lucifer stays. And there is I'll go into it a bit later in the series, because there's times where it does come up where there is a process for demons coming from that realm to our realm. But for plot related reasons that, once again, I can't really spoil because it's the first issue.
So he doesn't even get like any Ghost Rider transformative powers or anything. He's just, he's still just a guy. I just can't die because it'll be bad.
Well, it's more than that. He doesn't have the connection where Lucifer can do anything. But when he hit a certain point in maturity, which he has it when you see him, because I mentioned there's a time skip, he does have the same level of strength that Lucifer has, which is where I kind of throw a lot of some of the comedic scenes in, where a lot of like the lesser demons he can just one shot. Some of them I do for comedic effect. Some of them, there's a lot of like upper echelon demons where it's like, okay, this is actually a fight. And to balance that, which I put some lines of dialogue in there, like to hint at it, but I'll more expound upon it in the next issue. There's a massive downside to him actually using all of his power, which that downside would kind of speed up the whole problem about, oh, the world will end.
I'm just kind of I'm scrolling off the screen because I don't want to show all the pages. But basically he just gets punched in the face here. If this is our guy, might be a demon, I think, actually now.
Yes.
Gets punched in the face by this girl. He's like, I ain't got time for this. And next thing you know, he's like, giant spider zipper guy here. Like, what's happening? You're gone. That's what's happening. And I like that you disappear with a bamf. That's such an X-Men tribute sound effect for disappearing like that.
That one was on my letter because I was writing down certain things. Where I was like, I'm aware of that is the only sound effect I know for teleporting. I don't know if that's ripping it off if I'm saying that. So I was like, let me put this in here. I was like, hey, letter, can you put in a sound effect you think works for that? And he put Bamf. And I was like, okay, thank God. I wasn't gonna just rip off X-Men.
Yeah, I don't think Marvel's copyrighted that as Nightcrawler's signature disappearance. But there are unique sound effects. I mean, thwip, snicked, bamf. That's all Spider-Man, Wolverine, Nightcrawler. You know them when you see them. I think they're the only ones that really have anything. Unless you count the woo 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 that is supposed to be Aquaman's little telepathic. So how long of a series do you see this being? Is this because obviously it's not done in one. This is a big longer story, but is it going to be a 6-issue, a 12-issue?
So a lot of that kind of factors into the thing I mentioned about wanting to be picked up. If I have to end it early, I can end it at 12. If I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give it a little bit more room, but like don't do a ton. I think it was like 24 I can end it at. If I can do like everything I want to do, that's 32 issues.
Oh, that's a lot of issues. But
yeah.
That wouldn't be like, the whole story. It's probably like multiple arcs within that.
Yes. Each one is broken down into, sorry, it meant 36. There's 6 different arcs I have that I want to write, and each one broken into 6 issues. But I gave myself multiple points where, like, if I needed to stop a story here, there's a logical stopping point here. If I can do more, because let's just say it's doing very well and I have that freedom to do more, then sure, I'll go for it.
Okay. When's the next campaign? I mean, when can people really get back there and back this next book? Because you're into fulfillment now, so it's time, launch.
Unfortunately, the delays had pushed things back a bit. I was supposed to have already had my pre-launch page. Because the way Kickstarter works, and it makes sense. It's like, hey, until you fulfill your thing, you can't really start a new campaign. I was like, that's fair, so no one gets like cheated on stuff.
How does Kickstarter know?
Just like updates, like, hey, they'll look at your updates. They'll see if you put this, like, is the status for this shipped? Has it not shipped yet? So that's what they track. Because when you want to put your page up there, like, hey, we'll do a page review and we'll look through things, and that's what they mentioned before. Like, okay, I can't be mad at that. I understand the logic.
Yeah.
Nothing that could be done about the delays that happened because printing supplies weren't available.
But you can start promoting on Twitter and stuff, saying, "Hey, look, here's the cover for issue number 2."
Yeah, that I've done. I've been doing that as far as showing off stuff for issue 2. I just can't have the page where it's like, "Hey, notify me when this launches." I should be able to have that up early next week because I'll be sending out all the issues later this week. But as far as issue 2 goes, I'm planning for that to launch either the 18th or the 25th. I want to do the 18th, but if I can't get that page approved and give myself a little bit of time to at least start advertising, I kind of have a lot of eyes on it now and people are aware, then I'll push it back to the next week.
Okay. And you're going to be announcing all this basically on Twitter. And I put your account out here in the chat. So if you want to follow Laurent on Twitter, it's at Always Be Evil. Now, why is that your Twitter? What were you thinking?
It's from a dumb conversation with friends where we were talking about characters we liked, and I genuinely enjoy like villain characters. I find them far more interesting, and the reason for that usually is like, okay, the villain is what inspires what happens in the story. You take a hero, any hero you like, and give them no villains. There's not really anything that happens. Take a villain in any story, usually they do something that's what causes the hero to respond. So I find usually specifically well written villains to be far more interesting. And
they do make the story happen, don't they?
And I had that argument so many times with people. I was like, I'm just always going to back the evil character. And at some point it became always be evil. So that was the handle I started using.
Okay. Now this is right here. I want to put this page in particular, even though it's close to the, well, it's right there in the middle. This is Damien. This is the baby who survived. Any recriminations, second thoughts, second guesses about naming him Damien? I mean, it's a little on the nose, right?
Honestly, just a lot of what's in the series is on the nose. That one was just like, okay, I kind of like that name. I was thinking about the names I would give him, which, I mean, you see his business card a little bit later. That one's like, okay, I wanted to have some fun with some stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not like, like Demon, but it seems like everybody really likes that name when you're dealing with the child of the devil. You've got Damon Hellstrom, Damien the Omen, Damian Wayne, because he is the child of the devil. Come on. Well, he's the demon's daughter. So yeah, actually I was joking, but there's some verisimilitude to that. But this is, he does have these abilities. He can manifest these wings and horns, which look entirely Luciferian. But he's doing this because he can, not because something's within him allowing it. I'd really like to see how he learned he had all this stuff at some point in flashback. The growing up stuff, how he first manifested, and how he knows that he has this. Is that something that's going to come into play at any point, or is it just like, yeah, I was a baby, I was sacrificed and rescued by angels after Lucifer's soul was down to mine. Now I can do this.
No, a lot of the things will be, if not touched upon with dialogue, will be shown. I have an idea for how I wanted that scene to play out, but I don't know if there's somewhere I'm going to like really expound upon it versus like, okay, I'm not a fan of like the telling someone everything. I usually like to do little drops of dialogue because I believe in show don't tell.
Yeah.
As far as like digging into that is a different story, but it is something that will be discussed in the series.
Well, Maidenhell just commented here that the art is great on this, and I agree. By the way, he also said that truck drivers can't cross state borders in Australia because it's causing all kinds of shenanigans.
That's a real problem. What is with that?
Yeah,
okay.
and Pete, he also said Peter is a great guy. Peter being Peter Simeti, who's in charge of the Alterna group I was telling you about earlier. I would go further than saying the art is great. I would say you've got. Did you edit this yourself?
Yes.
Okay, well, you've got a good eye because I've seen a lot of self-edited stuff, and it's almost like lawyers who have themselves for a client. The editor, the writer who has himself for an editor is just wanting to publish his mistakes. I'm not seeing any in writing, and the lettering is just spot on. It's lettering's a thankless task. If you do it right, nobody notices, and because they only see the lettering if you screw something up, and it's like, ooh, I saw that.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got a good team assembled here for this.
Yeah, everyone was kind of handpicked for. I have either worked with you or I've seen your work and I trust it, and then I've had a good enough conversation where like not just how you do your job. I trust you to do the best version of the job for while we're working together. The letter was the very last edition because I was originally gonna have a different letter, but he had something come up and I was like, okay, that was another delay where it's like, I can understand why, because the thing you have to take care of is bigger than what I have going on. And I happened to see another Kickstarter campaign that I backed, and I really liked how the lettering looked at that, because one thing I was very aware of, because I looked at a bunch of interviews for publishers, because I mentioned down the road that's my goal, was, hey, number one thing to note, don't get some random Joe off the street who says I know how to letter, because you can have the greatest story, the greatest art, but if the lettering's trash, then no one really wants to deal with it. So I want to make sure who I got was professional. And when I looked into the letterer, I thought he had like done work for like IDW, and I told him like, okay, you have done work that like a professional company has seen it, like this is good. We are gonna have you on our series. So net, like I trust that, and it's been great working with him ever since.
Yeah, everything I see here says to me that if you start getting out on the circuit, shows like this and better ones, shows like this one and the better ones, before you get your Kickstarter out there and while it's up, and especially if you parlay that over into Indiegogo afterwards and get the entirely different audience, you're going to do better than 159 books on the next one around. This is this is stuff people are going to like. They just need to know it's there. And I don't know. I don't know what kind of promotion you did on the first Kickstarter. I'm assuming I'm not the first show you've gone on to talk about your book.
You're the fourth.
I hope the other three were during the Kickstarter campaign.
Two of them were, because the big problem with the Kickstarter campaign and me advertising at the time, which I'll never do this again, is and this is the big reason why I came out. The campaign launched in like June, and I'm not fulfilling until recently, is because I've always liked the Kickstarter campaigns or just any type of campaign that was like very involved. And when I had it, was like, hey, there's a few different tiers where you back at this tier, you can have either yourself or loved one backed as like a background character or insert yourself as a demon. So like for the longest time, the book just wasn't done. And that stuff, all the information came in, and people have been very happy with what they saw. But it's like, okay, because of that pushed back production significantly.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I learned was like, okay, great. Going forward, I'll have those same tiers in the KSU2 campaign, with a caveat being get yourself or your, inserted or have a demon drawn in, but that won't be until the next issue. So that way I can have the issue, like, cause I'm planning to have the issue done long before the Kickstarter campaign for the next issue is over. So right when the campaign's over, I'm like, okay, great. As soon as funds come through, I'll send it out for print. I'll get it back and I'll send it out for shipping.
Yeah. Turn it around as quick as possible. The drawn in tier, that's usually, that's like, we have two panels that are unfinished on these pages that are mostly finished. We're just waiting for your picture so we can sketch you in and be done and have the panel done. Having it as much done up front before the campaign is difficult, but is a hallmark of what I've seen in successful campaigns. Another Kickstarter campaign, for instance, Miskatonic High, they were 5 issues done, colored, and ready to go before they launched their first one. And because they did that, they've been able to stick to every 3 months there's a new book schedule, and they're up to. I just got number 13, so they're doing the right thing. And not only that, but because they're doing it every month and fulfilling every month, their backer numbers keep. I should do it this way, even though it's backwards to me. They keep going. They keep going up. They're getting an incline every single campaign. It goes up a little bit more. I'm going to assume that in your second campaign, you'll have like the catch-up tier for another physical copy for all those people who missed the first one.
Yes.
Because they're going to want it. Maybe even with a different cover, since, you've only printed 100 overrun that you're going to be, kind of selling on Etsy or whatever means you have available to you.
I didn't have any plans for a different cover for issue 1. I mean, each time I do print out, each campaign I do make, I plan on making separate covers for each of those. For issue 1, I only had 2 covers. I had one that was like, okay, there's a standard one, and a second one which was like, hey, this is a limited cover. Like, I'm only printing off X number of these, and they'll be available for this campaign. Okay. I'm not doing that again. Going forward, I'll do like, hey, here's the catch-up tier here, and you'll be getting cover A of that one, but I don't really have any big plans to do multiple new versions of like previous covers going forward.
What kind of stretch goals did you have on your first campaign? The tchotchkes, the stickers and buttons and magnets. Oh my!
For that one, let's see what I have. Oh, it's been a minute since I reached it. I know one of them involved like a bundle thing. Like, hey, if you once we reach this point, you will get like this bundle of like other comics from like other indie creators. There is there was one that was supposed to be I would make like an 8-page like side, like this was the highest price one. 8 page like just side story or just call like sacrifice like side tales or whatever I was gonna name it, because like I mentioned, it's a horror comedy. I have like a lot of dumb ideas I want to explore. Is like this would be funny. I'm not gonna take up time in the main series, but this would be enjoyable. Like one where is the main character in a situation that's an homage to The Grudge, because I'm going to have like a lot of like horror nods as as there already are in issue 1.
Yeah.
And I'm not fully committed to if I'm going to do that or not, because like I said, I don't want to take away too much time from producing the main series. But it's all stuff that I'm like, if I can get that, I'll do it. So I was thinking about that for stretch goals, but the first campaign didn't really have too many. I do have some planned out for the second campaign. It's all like on the files on my computer, but off top, I couldn't really name them.
May I suggest one?
Of course.
Devil's Advocates business cards.
You think that would go well?
I think that would go very well. And not as a tier, but as a like, hey, if we hit, X $1,000, everyone gets a Damian Blackwell business card so you can call if you ever need him. Do like just red foil across the top there. You can go through Vistaprint for that kind of thing. The only change I would suggest, if because this is a comedy, this is like Ghostbusters in a way, because that's what Damien does. He's paranormal problem solver. He says right here, demons, ghosts, zombies, you name it, I'll handle it. Last month I killed Frankenstein, and she's like, no, there's no way that's real. He's like, you just saw demons, and Frankenstein's where you draw the line. And look here, Maidenhell says, hell yes, pardon the pun. Yes, they would go for that very much. The only change I would make is if that area code was 666, chef's kiss right there.
Didn't even dawn upon me. Actually, I don't even remember what I threw down for the area code on that. But
you got 546 on there. The rest of it's 555, 5555. But yeah, if it was a 666 area code, that'd be like, yeah, that'd be just perfect for this. Because I don't think anybody's ever done a business. Well, first of all, the business card is an important story element. So you're having something basically come out of the story and into the reader's hands. They're like, you have Damien's business card. He's ready to believe you. If you have things that go bump in the night. But because everyone's doing like trading cards, everyone does stickers, and not that stickers are bad or anything like that, but that one's just the business card's an obvious screaming make me a tier or rather a stretch goal.
A stretch goal, I can throw that down on the list. It's not hard to do.
It should almost really be your first stretch goal, I think, of the list. It's like, he's encountered everything. She's like, how about Bigfoot? Well, that's not actually his name, but and then more action takes on from there because he gets attacked by something behind the library shelf, which I'm not showing because I've shown enough. Hey, Pops Van Zandt is here. Pops is another show that when you launch, you have to go over and get on Pops Comic Related Madness, and you'll get more backers from there. Again, 150 some odd backers with no exposure to really speak of. That says a lot to the art and the writing and the action scenes here. You add exposure to that, you're going to be super surprised, I think, with what you're going to get the results out. And you're looking at launching late this month, right?
Yeah, like October 18th is like the goal, unless there's some type of issue with when I can put out my my page for like, hey, now that you guys know about this, hit this so you can like follow it and know for fact when it comes out.
Okay, so here's the deal. Halloween night, October 31st, Sunday, at 8 p.m. Eastern, I'm hosting the final panel on Pops Van Zandt's CromCon. He does a monthly online convention. We're going to have the Cryptidnals on there, which they're the cryptid horror stories. You'd be a perfect fit for this. I'd like to add you to that panel and have you be part of it, and show your book to that crowd while we're there.
If I can get,
if you say yes.
Yeah, I need to talk to the fiance because I'm supposed to take our kid trick or treating. If I can get the okay from her, I'd love to
do that. Yes, trick or treating with fiance and children. Pop said it's 9 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, it's 8 p.m. my time. I'm Central, so I read what I wrote in my calendar, and I always say Eastern by default. So it's later. It's if you're in Eastern time, it'd be 9 p.m. He should be in a sugar coma already and in bed. So
yeah, I'm in Eastern as well. So yeah, like I said, as long as I can get the thumbs up from her, then I'd be perfectly happy doing that.
Touch back with me, and hopefully you'll have gotten all the candy you can possibly get. We'll have you on that Halloween panel. Something just fell in the house. Wasn't me. I'm renting a room, so there's other people renting the same apartment here. So
I understand.
Kind of wandering around. Yeah, and we will be out there for a few hours, so you don't have to show up right at 9 o'clock. You can come in wandering at 9:30, come in drunk at 10. I don't know. Whatever floats your jam, man. All right. I think we did go an hour, which is not bad considering we didn't have a campaign to go over. We just had the book itself to stand up on. Again, there's enough of the book here to substantiate a decent conversation in terms of art and writing and action. So you should be very proud of what you've accomplished here. We just got to get this in front of more eyeballs, I think.
Man, that's the goal going forward, because which is the big thing that has me excited for 2, because I've had people like test read the script and like pages, like, okay, just in general, what do you think? Like people who are close to me, who I know, give me their opinion, and like 100%. Number 2 is like significantly, like people like that way more than issue 1, and people have already been talking about how much like issue 1. I was like, okay, I'm very excited to get this in the hands of people, especially with me seeing the pages from the artists, because I write something I feel like this will be good.
Yeah,
like
it's very good.
And then I get it back from the art team, and it's like, I love this.
George is in the chat going blah blah blah. George, it's a digital comic right now. Just hit the link and get your $3 digital comic from Gumroad, and it's a PDF delivery, so it's just the kind of thing you like. What a fluff interview. Where is the drama? Apparently, there's been drama all over Twitter today about comic book crowdfunding and Comicsgate people. I don't know. I searched up and down Twitter. I didn't see anything out of the ordinary, which is because there's drama every day. There's never any drama on my channel. Never. We don't. Well, sometimes there is, but it's usually by accident. And I always try to put a damper down on that if we have like more than one guest and they start fighting. I'm like, guys, no, we don't do that here.
Yeah, that's the thing that happens.
Oh, that's a thing that happened. Oh, you are so naive, young man. This is comic books. This is a blood sport. Come on.
I've only been in more than one interview or an interview with more than one person once, where it was myself and my artist. And not only do we get along, but he doesn't speak enough like English to get into an argument. So I've never had to deal with that.
Yeah, as Pop says, it was a normal day. Yeah. This is comic books. This is, we grew up, getting into fist fights in the comic shop about whether Wolverine could take on Batman. You start getting into publishing now. Oh, you're doing an independent publishing deal. Yeah, but I can't wait to get picked up by a real publisher. What? Dead to me. It'll happen. It's going to happen to you. So, don't be surprised. Just, it's like, just say, oh, this is that thing RJ told me about.
I'll roll with the punches when they come.
Well, there won't be any real punches. They are comic book nerds after all.
God, I'd hope not.
All right. Laurent, I think we've covered everything we should cover here. Good book. Great book. Thank you so much for bringing it on to the show tonight.
Thank you for having me. Folks
in the chat, thank you for coming by. We don't have a show without you. In 1 hour, head over to the mic stand and check out what Mike Walters has coming up in niche news. And then Friday nights, he's going back to the golden age and doing a deep dive on the comics that in sequential order, by the way, mind you. So you're getting a history as it happened. and Pop said we're campaigning to get Fraga to draw Crom. Help us out. Okay, well, yeah, you can get Fraga Boom to draw an image of Crom. Crom is the ogre, dwarf, imp, demon, whatever mascot of CromCon. Comics related madness. CRM Crom, not Conan's deity. So if you hear us talking about Crom, that's what that is. And with that, everybody in the chat, hit that link, share the video, get Laurent's work out here in front of more people. And we definitely want to have you back later this month here when you launch, and then at the CromCon Halloween show, if you can make it. And above all and beyond that, we just hope that everybody had a blast while you were here. So thank you all for coming. We'll see you tomorrow. Good night.